A good day. Welcome to Introduction to Law and the Legal System of the Philippines. So, this session will focus on understanding different kinds of laws, recognizing the important constitutional provisions related to tourism and travel, and comprehending the rights of travelers and tourism related entities. This sets the stage for a deeper exploration of the Philippine legal system, particularly in the context of tourism. For an introduction, there are two broad categories of law, the substantive and the procedural. So, substantive refers to the set of laws that govern how people behave. It defines the rights and duties of individuals and collective bodies. For example, laws that define what constitutes a crime or what rights a person has in a contract fall under substantive law. Procedural law, on the other hand, concerns the rules and processes by which the law is administered and enforced. It provides the steps for having a court enforce substantive rights or impose sanctions. For instance, rules of court procedure, including how a lawsuit must be filed or how evidence is to be presented, are part of procedural law. This distinction is fundamental to understanding how laws are applied in practice. So, laws can also be differentiated based on their purpose. It could be general or public law and the special or private law. So, general or public law are laws that apply universally to all individuals or specific groups within a society. They ensure that everyone is held to the same standard. Examples include criminal laws that apply to everyone or political laws that govern public institutions. A special or private law, on the other hand, are laws that apply only to specific individuals or organizations. They might regulate specific activities, relationships, or issues like maritime law governing sea navigation and commerce, or civil law governing personal relationships and property rights. So, understanding this classification helps in recognizing the scope and application of different legal provisions. So, the kinds of law as to scope, we have like the Philippine Constitution. This is the supreme law that governs the country, setting the framework for the government and the fundamental rights. Then we have statute and legislative enactments, laws passed by the Philippine Congress that apply to various sectors, including tourism. Administrative or executive orders, regulations, or rulings, these are issued by government agencies or the executive branch. These rules help implement and enforce statutes. We also have judicial decisions or jurisprudence, court rulings that interpret laws and set legal precedents. Customs are traditional practices that in some cases have the force of law, particularly in areas where statutory law is silent. Then other sources might include treaties, international agreements, or other legal instruments relevant to tourism. So this shows the complexity and multiple sources of law that influence the tourism industry. Let's look into the Philippine Constitution to give you an overview of our Constitution. The Constitution outlines the basic principles and framework of the government, defining the distribution of power among its branches, the executive, legislative, and judicial. So, those are the three branches of the government. It also establishes the right of individuals and sets the boundaries within which the government must operate. All other laws in the Philippines must conform to the Constitution. That's why we call it the supreme law of the land, making it the ultimate source of legal authority. So, understanding the Constitution is crucial for interpreting other laws and recognizing how they must align with the constitutional principles. So, the vital provisions related to, to tourism and travel in the Constitution, as an overview, let's go through Section 1 first, because this is a very important provision. So, this focuses on specific constitutional provisions that protect individual rights, particularly those relevant to tourism and travel. So that's what we're going to discuss under the constitutional law. But first, let's look into Section 1 Bill of Rights. Protects basic rights, including life, liberty, and property, and ensures due process and equal protection under the law. So life includes, under Section 1, more than just physical existence. It also covers social and economic rights, which can impact tourism, such as the right to work in a particular field or live in a certain place. Liberty refers to the freedom to choose one's path in life, including where to work, live, and travel. Property protects one's right to own and use property, which is vital for businesses and individuals in the tourism industry. Equal protection ensures that all people are treated equally under the law without discrimination. And when we say due process, these guarantees fair legal procedures before someone is deprived of life, liberty, or property, which is crucial for legal disputes in any sector, actually, like tourism. So this slide underscores the importance of constitutional rights in the context of tourism and travel. We have here cases applying Section 1 of the Bill of Rights. So it's a case exploring the application of constitutional principles. So in this scenario, a Filipino congressman is accused of crimes in the US, and the US requests is his extradition. So the congressman seeks to oppose the extradition without leaving the Philippines. So the issues here are, can the Philippine government refuse the request for extradition documents? And would refusing the request violate the congressman's right to due process? So this case invites discussion on the balance between national sovereignty, international law, and the individual rights, particularly in the context of due process. So, can the Philippine government refuse the request for extradition documents? The answer is yes, the Philippine government can refuse the request for extradition documents. Extradition is primarily a matter of international relations and treaties between countries. The decision to extradite an individual or provide documents related to extradition often involves diplomatic considerations, national sovereignty, and legal obligations under international treaties. If the Philippines determines that releasing the documents could compromise its sovereignty, diplomatic interests, or the rights of the individual, it can lawfully refuse the requests. How about, would refusing the request violate the congressman's right to due process? The answer is no. Refusing the request would not necessarily violate the congressman's right to due process. Due process under the Philippine Constitution ensures that individuals are given notice of legal proceedings and a fair opportunity to be heard. However, the right to due process does not automatically extend to receiving all documents from a foreign government before any legal proceedings begin. The due process rights of the congressman would be protected during the formal extradition to the Philippines, where he would have the opportunity to challenge the extradition request in court. So this scenario highlights the tension between protecting an individual's rights and respecting international agreements and diplomacy, emphasizing that due process within the Philippine legal system would still provide the congressman with avenues to defend his rights during extradition process. Here is another case. So the scenario here is that a ordinance prohibits short-time admissions in hotels to combat HIV. The legality of this ordinance under the Constitution is in question. So is the ordinance constitutional? This particular case encourages you to discuss on public health, safety, and individual rights, particularly how government regulations can impact businesses in the tourism industry. So is the ordinance constitutional? Well, the constitutionality of the ordinance depends on whether it strikes a reasonable balance between the government's interests in protecting public health and the rights of individuals and businesses. So, public health and safety means that the government has the authority to enact laws and ordinances to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. In this case, the ordinance aims to combat the spread of HIV, which is a legitimate public health concern. The government can argue that the ordinance is a necessary measure to protect the community from a serious health threat. As to individual rights, the ordinance potentially infringes on the rights of individuals to privacy and freedom of choice. People might argue that the government is overstepping by dictating the terms of private transactions, like how long someone can stay in a hotel room. Additionally, the ordinance could be seen as a form of discrimination against certain groups or activities. If you look at it on the lens of how it impacts businesses, businesses, particularly in the hospitality industry, might argue that the ordinance unfairly restricts their operations, leading to a loss of income. They could claim that the ordinance imposes an unreasonable burden on their ability to conduct business. So, to determine constitutionality, courts would assess whether the ordinance is a reasonable and proportionate means of achieving the public health goal. If the ordinance is found to be too broad or if there are less restrictive means to achieve the same goal, it might be deemed unconstitutional. So, this case illustrates the delicate balance between the government's duty to protect public health and the need to respect individual freedoms and business rights, which is particularly relevant in the tourism industry where regulations can significantly impact operations.